Here we are all. Welcome. Blocks will be useful. A couple of you've got them, and even a cork block, but one can make do with other stuff. So if you've got 2 blocks, I know you have here in the Matika, but at home, if you haven't got 2 blocks, you can use books, and if you haven't got a block, you can use something else that's a bit like a block. And a blanket. And if you haven't got a blanket at home, maybe you've got a towel, and if you haven't got a towel, let me know and I'll get you one, because everyone home should have a towel, at least one. We're going to sit in Sukhasana for a moment, not for long. 2 blocks, blanket, possibly another block behind you, actually another block behind you. Blanket under the shins. Block behind you, as I mentioned, could be a book if you haven't got a block. Gap between the legs and the pelvis, the pose is Sukhasana. Interoception, perception of the space inside the body, spinal cavity, thoracic cavity, cranial cavity, pelvic cavity, etc. Space inside the body. We know there's space because blood is flowing. Blood couldn't flow if there wasn't space for it to move through. We know that there's space because the organs are moving. Lungs, diaphragm, heart, and so on. So we can perceive the space inside the body in this way. Noticing movement, the movement of the breath, the movement of the heart, the movement of the diaphragm, the movement of blood, the movement of heat. So space is the medium by which things travel. Without it, there is no movement. So if there's movement, there's space. So we perceive the internal space. Now, proprioception. Perceive the space that the body is in, which is also moving. And of course, the space that the body is in, countless other bodies are also in, bending and moving space-time. And every object makes a dent, as it were, in space-time. And every dent in space-time affects every object in space-time. So you can feel your body in the room, but you can also feel there are for certain relationships with every other body in the universe, which all occupy a space in space-time. And so this is proprioception. Perceiving the space that the body is in. Now, a wonderful thing happens when you perceive both simultaneously, interoception and proprioception at the same time. So the space that's in the body and the space that the body's in, space that the body takes. And that is a sort of melting of inside and outside, takes place by itself. When we have a melting, in Sanskrit it's called layanam, we find it in all the Hatha texts, or certainly the early ones before the Pradipika. When you have this melting, then there's a direct understanding of Prakriti, the all, the everything. When there's a direct understanding of Prakriti, then we know Prakriti. And when we know Prakriti, we dance as her, with her, instead of against her. spontaneously, not as a person doing, you're not involved, thank goodness. I'm not involved, thank goodness, etc. Inhale, lift up from the groins. Exhale, right hand on the floor behind you, left hand crosses over both legs. Parita Sukhasana, so this is where the block behind you will come in useful. Tune in on the sitting bones so that you're neither on the left nor the right, but right in the middle. Through movement, come back to a full awareness of interoception, pelvic cavity, abdominal cavity, spinal cavity, thoracic cavity, cranial cavity, movements in the body. Come back to a full awareness of the space that the body's in. And a full awareness of both at the same time. Space in the body, interoception. Space the body's in, proprioception. Both are real, both can be defined by movement. Our skin moves and it moves, the shape of the body moves in space. As we breathe, as we move left or right to tune in. As there's a movement of blood, the body shape is subtly changing. It's altering the shape of space-time. And everything else in space-time is altered as a result, and the body is being altered by everything else in space-time too. Lift and turn, keep lifting and turning all the way around, Parita Sukhasana. Don't hold the breath, let it go. And as we turn the opposite direction, we tune in on the spine, between the sitting bones. Whether your palm faces in or out is up to you. Actually, what's great about this is it's not up to you or me. It's up to flow, which we want to allow, which is allowing the goddess, which is allowing Prakriti. And in allowing Prakriti, we are told by the Sankhya Karika and the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, liberates. It's enjoyable, bhogaha, the nominative singular bhogaha, enjoyment. And it also liberates, moksha. The experience of Prakriti is for the enjoyment and the liberation. And it's to show, to make clear Prakriti and Purusha, so one can perceive Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti is for that, we're told in the text. Prakriti dances exactly so. We don't cling and we fall into our true nature. She dances in a way that is exactly, precisely and beautifully ungraspable, so that we fall into our true nature. Or we fall into the Purusha nature. So, interocept, pelvic cavity, abdominal cavity, spinal cavity, cranial cavity, thoracic cavity. Perceive the movements in the body. And simultaneously perceive the body in space. And the whole concept of inside and outside will melt spontaneously. And there is just Prakriti. Everything that we thought was mind, defined by this border of the skin, reveals itself to be Prakriti, dancing, whole, complete, sentient. This is what the texts tell us. She's whole, she's complete, she's sentient. In other words, there are feelings and, okay, return to center. Palms up, deep breaths, plural, drop the shoulders. Relax the buttocks. If everything is Prakriti, you don't need anything, apart from maybe a wiggle of your fingers. So wiggle your fingers a little bit. You can feel the nerves move. Interocepting, propriocepting, melting. This reminds us of a practice we find in the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Now we're going to put the blanket to one side. We're going to extend out the legs and give ourselves a little rub-a-dub-dub energy bath. So make it kind of, like a proper energy bath. Make it thorough and invigorating. We find these kind of practices in what we might say more traditional Hatha yoga, as expressed in True Core, which is a kind of hybrid between Hatha yoga and Tantric yoga, we could say, or a particular kind of Hatha yoga, which we find in texts like the Shiva Samhita and to some extent the Pradipika. Now we're going to fold one leg back, let's say the right leg for the sake of argument, tucking it to half Virasana position, still sitting on 2 blocks, whether or not you might find it more comfortable on one. We'll stay on 2 for now, and bend back the other leg. Lift up the chest, breathe through the nose, range around. You can probably feel some massage on the ligaments of the sacroiliac joint at the back of the pelvis. And again, it's for the purpose of enjoyment and liberation. Liberation means not being confused, not muddling. We're told this, again, this is all explicit. You only have to read the Sankhya Karika and the Patanjali Yoga Sutra to know that the direct experience of Prakriti, which is all manifest things as the goddess, all manifest things, like even that thought about whether or not you're involved, or doubt, that's her too, or uncertainty or tension or confusion, that's her as well, not yours. Or craving, that's hers, or aversion or whatever, tension in the body, release in the body, it's all hers. Everything is manifest. There's nothing that isn't hers. And of course, what is the most beautiful thing to do is just realize that and let the goddess dance. Stop trying to don't get her to hold your shopping, as it were. Like, this is it, because she can't dance. She's holding all your bags for you. So one of those bags, me, myself, and I, she's like, oh no. Okay, now reach down underneath your foot and hold the foot and breathe through the nose. And that's often enough. It makes a mudra. Some people find it difficult to reach the foot. It's fine to hold the shin, but the mudra is quite nice. Mudra meaning a seal. And then either holding the shin or holding the foot, we lean the bum back until the foot comes up. And we breathe through the nose. And we relax if we want. See, trouble with language is it's all wrong. Say we relax. It's like, the realization that this is Prakriti, the breath. Every sensation, there's nothing that isn't her, nothing. That is inherently relaxing, But it's not a view, because views aren't relaxing, because you have to cling to them and you have to be ready to fight other people who don't have them and, defend them, and they're not relaxing. But it's a direct experience, pratyaksha. It's one of the pramanas in the Indian tradition or South Asian tradition. One of the ways in which we know something through pratyaksha, direct experience. Many people will feel they get lots out of this by leaning back and playing. Some people feel they want to play with extending the leg. That's fine as well. There's it's totally understandable why we get confused and think, being better at yoga is being more flexible, and we find that desirable sometimes. We think, if only I was, then people would respect me more and talk to me at parties without me having to make any effort, and various other wrong views. But all you need is a stretch. Doesn't matter how much, it doesn't matter what it looks like relative to someone else's stretch. You only need a stretch. Right? If it mattered how much it looks like relative to other people's stretch, then, the younger you are, the better. If you're a gymnast, it's even better. They're immediately spiritually emancipated. If you're 13-year-old gymnast, or so that can't be right. So the leg can be bent, leg can be straight. We're going to bring the leg down again. Take a breath or two or three. Extend it out. Give it a rub. Lean and release the other. This is Kraun Chasana, or variations on the theme. Draw the buttock flesh out and back. Fold back the other leg. Shin goes under, thigh goes out. Shin goes under, thigh goes out. Buttock flesh is drawn out and back. Fold back the other leg, lift up your chest. And study, swadhyaya, study. So study means, let's go to St. Augustine for advice. Don't try and put your cup in the, don't try and put the ocean in your cup, throw your cup in the ocean. That's how we study as yogis. Don't try and put the ocean in the cup. What do I understand? The cup is the idea of I, and it's just a little tiny teacup, little bone china, quite nice teacup. But it can't fit an ocean in it at all. Not even anything like the ocean. It can't fit it. And if you put it in, try to, all you've got is a cup of salt water, and the ocean remains unknown. So you've got to throw your cup into the ocean for swadhyaya. And that means breathing, first of all. That's how you say yes. That's how you say yes to surrender to this moment. And this moment is the knowledge we need. If you want, you can reach down for your mudra, energetic seal, by holding the foot or the shin. Don't hold the breath, however. Perhaps you can feel the ligaments of the lumbar. Breathing freely and naturally. And then lean back. Got to lean back to lift up. You can do it with your hand around your shin or under your foot. That immediately brings the stretches we need, the investigative experience we need. Again, extend if you want. There's an option to extend. It's not, and it's, where the condition, the way this area of Prakriti is conditioned. This area, I mean, like us in the room and people brought up in this time era, and brought up in this part of the world and so on. In most parts of the world now, because most parts of the world follow a similar pattern. And most of us are conditioned to see more as better. Like, if I could only do more of this pose, I'd be doing better. And that's Prakriti. It's just, you can observe that if it arises. You might not. But remember, yoga is just a river with two stepping stones. Stepping stone one, a strong sensation of any kind, an intense experience like a stretch or a muscular toning, a strong sensation of any kind. That's stepping stone one. No good to you without stepping stone two. Useless, pointless without stepping stone two, which is giving to that strong sensation or intense sensation. How do you do it? Breath. It's simple. It's a simple path. So make sure you've bitten off what you can chew and then breathe into that. If you bite off more than you can chew, you can't breathe into it, and so it doesn't work. Okay, super duper. It's a Sanskrit expression. No, it isn't. Okay, fold back both legs. Don't forget you can sit on 2 blocks if you need, or 3 blocks. Draw the buttock flesh out and back. Vira. And the term vira is used a lot in the Tantra. It really is a term that is connected with people who are willing to meet the goddess face to face. They're often called viras, heroes, because because she's beautiful, but she also is an obliterator. So she will obliterate, everything that we sort of cling to, and me, myself, and I, all that, which is good because it's all nonsense. She only obliterates nonsense. She doesn't obliterate anything apart from thoughts, ideas. Raise your arms with fingers interlaced. Suck in the tummy. Draw it in and up. Next, this is called Parvatanasana or Parvatasana, which is just the name of a mountain. So you could call this mountain pose, like we do with Tadasana. And sucking in the tummy, moving left and right. Make sure that upper fibers of the trapezius, the descending fibers, are loose. We're looking for space, and we find it through flow. You can, it's like if you find smoke, you'll find fire. Although that's not always true, but metaphorically. Sometimes you'll just find someone's incense stick. Or maybe Gary Newman on stage or something in a smoke machine. But anyway. It's a bit of an old reference, that, Gary Newman. Anyway, the point is, if you find breath, you'll find movement. If you find movement, you'll find space. And if you find space, you'll find the goddess. So if you find the internal spaces, the interoception, if you find the space the body's in, the proprioception, if you find them both at the same time, the construct of I'm here and everything else is there, I can't stand in that any more than a dandelion seed can stand up to the faintest breeze. Because that's how sort of light and nothing the view of self really is. And that's why it's so difficult and causes us so much stress, because we're defending something that's the flimsiest thing ever. Okay, big wide circle. Rest the hands on the lap like a Buddha. Take breaths, plural. Now the breath's really important for 3 breath rounds. Deep breath rounds without clinging. Let the buttocks relax. What are they gripping for? Nothing to hold. You don't have to hold your block. It won't run away. So let it go. Let the buttocks go. Let everything go. Let everything go. If you don't let everything go, then you suffer. And so does everyone around you. If you let everything go, you don't suffer, and neither does anyone around you. Simple equation is true. In case you're not sure, it's true. Okay, release your hands from that position. Now, we came into a version of mountain pose. Let's come into another. And that is the more traditional standing up one. So take a moment or two, and when you feel ready, and in your own way, do your utmost to be able to stand up. And we're going to use, if you've got them, 2 blocks. If you haven't, at least 1 block. And if you haven't got 1 block, then a book, not too thick, but quite big. I don't know if you've got a book that's not too thick, but quite big. So you've got 2 blocks, hopefully. You can use something else for this top block, like a belt. We're going to stand on a block with the feet doing a wheelie. Just something I always had an ambition to do as a child in the 70s on my bicycle. Fortunately, / unfortunately, I had a chopper, which is you cannot do a wheelie on. Anyway, raise your arms, breathe easy. 3 gears, bright orange chopper I had. It was well cool. It was, 3 on the thing there, yeah. Really great it was. Although it was secondhand and a bit cheap, and the brakes didn't work very well. So I did have a bit of an accident once where I had to use my feet for the brakes, but that's another story for another day. Suck in the tummy, breathe through the nose. I did completely and utterly love that chopper though. Now, imagine you're pulling your block apart. And so hold it above you. Don't be afraid of it falling. Don't be chicken licking. And then tone the tummy. Chicken licking's a story about the sky falling down, in case you don't know. So movement can help. Tone in the tummy, repetition, investigation. Remember proprioception, the body in space. Remember interoception, the space in the body. Remember them as a pratyeksha, a direct experience. It's completely and utterly useless as an idea. It's a nice idea, scholarly, clever, interesting, something to talk about, but useless in terms of moksha. useful if you're a scholar and you want to write your latest paper for academia.org and fascinate people like me, but useless for moksha. You have to have direct experience of space. Direct, here and now. And of course, it's not difficult because it's real. If there's any movement, it's moving in space. Right? And the body is in space, and all bodies in space move space. Einstein proved that, and Einstein was clever, more clever than me, and probably more clever than you. And he had really good hair as well. Okay, bring your arms down forwards in front of you. And put your block to one side with TLC. And push the other block out. And come to Tadasana blockless. Feet close or together. Tadasana namaskara. That is to say, with the namas, the namaha, which means to bow. Namaskara is the action of bowing. And so breathing easy. So bowing means what? And it's namas. Bowing to what? And for what reason? Well, it's surrender to the goddess, if you're a Shakta, which I think I might be. I have suspicions about myself. So, Shakta means somebody who kind of like digs the goddess concept, finds it, useful. So, like if you find green Tara, kind of cool, you're like, oh, I love green Tara, or if you find Kali, kind of like, oh, I like her, it's frightening, but I like her, or whatever. Or if you like Bhuvaneshwari or Lakshmi or whatever, or Prajna Paramita, if you keep it Buddhist. So deep breath, or Vajrayogini. Oh my God, I love Vajrayogini. So we're bowing to the goddess, which just means Prakriti. If you're into Patanjali yoga, then you'll be like, okay, I'm happy with that. Prakriti. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms down, raise your arms up. So with interlaced fingers. So it's mountain in mountain. Right? Mountain pose while you're doing mountain pose. Double mountain. Which would be a name for a good coffee name in the 80s. Tone the tummy, move around, look for height. And especially in the lumbar. And flow, again, let's look for space. And you can't, you find space so easily by finding movement. You couldn't move your body at all if you weren't moving it in space, right? If you were, for example, and in a cupboard, a very small cupboard. Let's keep it a positive scenario. Playing hide and seek. I adore that game. Don't know why. I just love it. You couldn't move, right? If you're in a little cupboard, hiding from your nephew or niece in a game or child or whatever, because you need space to move. So you feel the space you're moving. Okay, big, wide circle. Hands to heart again. Let's hear a deep breath. Followed by another. Followed by another. Followed by another. You get the picture. Followed by another. Probably don't have to keep saying it now. You get the picture. Followed by another. Raise your arms up by taking a circle out to the sides, raising them up from the hip joints. So for me, I have to tune in on the hip joints. I can't just think about them because that's not it. If you're hungry and you think about a mango, you're still hungry. You have to eat it to not be hungry. So if you want to connect to the hip joints, it's not enough to think about them. You have to come out of thinking into direct experience. Again, pratyaksha. Which is one of the pramanas of Buddhism, one of the pramanas of it's one of the all traditions, all of the South Asian traditions, bar none, have pratyaksha as their pramana. One tradition has that is its only pramana, its only way of knowing things. Press the feet, raise the fingers. Inhale, exhale, bend ankles, knees, and hips. There may be cracking. There may be cracking. And then you can move up and down if you want. You're leaning forwards from the hip joints. Have your hands apart so that you keep your neck free. Some people find it useful to turn the heels of the hands out and bend, extend. Listen to how it is now. Go beyond concepts and thoughts and fall in love with the goddess. Surrender. All the things you thought, it's like, this is mine, have it. This is mine, have it. Nothing's, all the things that we hold on to, which are part of her that we hold on to, that's what causes us suffering. So if you give it to her, she frees you. That's why we love her. We're like, have this, have this, have this, have this. The more you give to the goddess, the happier you become. Stand up, big circle, hands to heart, breathe easy, feet apart, hip width. Check your feet are parallel, using an imagined midline that you're standing on. Spread your toes with patience and love and trust. We're not trusting concepts. We're not trusting yoga teachers. We're not trusting people. We're not trusting anything in particular. We're trusting the goddess, which is nothing in particular. The goddess is everything. Therefore, she's not a particle. She's a field. Rest my case. Raise your arms up. Breathe easy. Release the neck. Play, lila. Play. So bend your knees. Move left, move right. Use movement to find the buoyancy of the pelvic floor. There's a sort of buoyancy. When your pelvic floor is buoyant from above, then that supports your whole spinal column very, very well. But if you hold your breath to tune in, then you're grabbing bits off the goddess. You're like, oh, that's mine and that's mine. It's a travesty, to do that. Or you're saying, look, bits of the goddess. Imagine she's got thousands of arms, millions of arms, and that you're giving her your baggage to hold. Like, hold this, hold that, hold this, hold that. And the more things she holds, the less she can dance. And she is what we normally call conventionally my thoughts, my body. So this body can't dance. These emotions can't dance if you give it the baggage of self. Press the feet, raise the fingers, inhale. Exhale, bend ankles, knees, and hips. There may be cracking ahead, may not be. No cracking in the room today. Marvelous. Utkarta means squatting, by the way. So one can squat as low as one is happy to squat. Using the arms forwards can help to make that a bit more sustainable. And then coming up, big wide circle, hands to heart. Inhale, exhale. Jaw soft, eyes soft, throat soft, tongue soft, brain soft. Okay, hands to hips, go wider. Step out. Check the toes are equidistant from the front and the sides of the mat. Turn the left toes in, right foot and leg out on the ball of the foot. Finish off the turn on the heel. Heel to arch alignment is what we're going for. Breathing through the nose. Heel to arch alignment. Breathing through the nose. Make sure the back toes have turned in. Have a double check. Imagine a softening that opens in two directions. I even find it useful to do that with my hands. If we all do it together, then no one has to feel particularly embarrassed. We can be like that, like some sort of strange thespian expressing themselves. Hello. I think that's how thespians talk. Hello. And then bend your leg. Of course, a thespian is different from an actor. I presume you know the difference. Thespian is someone who says hello. And an actor is someone who just acts on, Anyway, stretch up and over. Breathe through your nose. Yourself, look up under your armpit if you want. Looking up through that glass atrium, I suspect a blue sky above us. Good Lord. Got a blue sky above us here at the BBC. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. And play to fall into her arms. Play to fall into her arms, to fall back into her arms, to give her back what it's like you took loads of things from her and said, that's mine, and then you feel like it's like, oh, they're such a burden. They're not a burden to her, they are her. So not only we sort of try to take bits of her, she wants them, they're hers. And you don't want them, really. You don't want them. Okay, arm down, palm down, push, inhale. Hands on the hips. Catch a deep breath. Followed by another. Deep breaths are very important. Very important. Keep them flowing, therefore. They define space as a direct experience. Back toes in, front foot and leg out. On the ball of the foot, finish off the hand on the heel. Heel to arch alignment. Again, let's move our arms to, not just to sort of be expressive. I've been sorting out through my dad's enormous collection of theatrical memorabilia. I think I finished yesterday. But it's filled with thespians, pictures of thespians everywhere. We're like, hello, the law. Very, that was his thing. My dad was so into it, you wouldn't believe it. So my head is full of thespian sort of movements and photographs and all the rest. Anyway, so enjoy the inner thespian and come down when you're ready. My dad also, would act very thespian-like a lot of the time. Stretching up and over, looking up under your armpit. Here in the Buddhist Centre, we're lucky enough to be able to look up at the blue sky and the occasional wheeling seabird. They shout as they go past those seagulls. They love a good morning shout. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. We're never coming up again. Tense, isn't it? Coming down instead. So windmill your arm down. Both hands either side of your foot. Externally rotate the back heel and step back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, the downward facing dog. Pad your paws into a deeper weave with the yoga mat. Make sure your feet are equidistant from the sides of the mat. Make sure your hands are equidistant from the side of the mat. They don't have to be the same distance as each other, the hands and feet, but the left hand has to be the same distance from the side of the mat as the right hand. And the left foot has to be the same distance from the side of the mat as the left foot. And then really extend through. Heels back, inner groins up, back of the thighs forwards, front of the thighs up. Gluteal creases deep. That helps lift the front of the thighs further and they go up and back. And if you can tune in over time, and before we do that, we often need to hydrate the tissue by bending, extending, and so on. But if you can hydrate over time, eventually the back of the legs drawing forwards and the front of the legs drawing up means that the top of the thighs go back powerfully, and you can pull the deep psoas forwards, keeping the arms long. Bring your shoulders forwards. Make sure your hands are wide enough to accommodate your collarbones sufficiently. Kumbhakasana, or sometimes known as Palankasana. And breathing through the nose. So we're sloping from shoulder blades to buttocks, from buttocks to heels. Jaw soft, eyes soft. I'm fairly sure you will disobey me now, but I love you still. Doesn't matter. You're loved. Lower yourself and hover above the floor. Hover. Oh yeah, good job. Good. Oh. And then push up to Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. You're loved. You're loved. You're loved and you are loved. Tone the tummy, breathe through the nose. And really stretch up from the pubis. If your back feels stiff, thank God you're doing this. Thank God. Stay with it. If you can feel the backbones, it all just feels like one big lump of wood. That's good that you're doing this. Feel the weight of those bones, the heaviness. They are very heavy, the lumbar vertebrae. Suck in your tummy, lift up your chest. If you want to come down, forget it. Forget it. Just lift up your chest a bit more. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Well done. Well done. Take a breath or two, or 3, or 4, or 5, or whatever. Open up the inner armpit. The only way that instruction will land is if it's contextualized within relaxed, meditative breathing. Opening up the inner armpit will land
if it's taken within calmness, the 3 C's of yoga: calmness, conditions, connection. Back of the thighs towards the front of the thighs, front of the thighs up, inner groins up. Stretching the deep belly, opening the inner armpits, opening the outer armpits. Coming down to hands and knees slowly. Lower the knees really slowly, like sort of almost annoyingly slowly. And then finally let the weight come. Take 3 deep breaths that are audible. You might want to wag your tail a bit. Soft eyes, soft brain, soft throat. Breath and body together, both expressing each other. Now, take the foot that's closest to me into the place of the hand that's closest to me. So it comes forwards, replaces the hand. Doesn't matter which foot, if you're at home, just take 1 foot forward into the place of his own hand. You got it. And then, perhaps on fingertips, lift your back knee up with the back toes tucked under and play a little bit. So play could be ranging between straighter and more bent with either or both legs. It could also include lowering the back knee and taking it further back behind you and then lifting it again. Lifting and landing. You can tune in the inner groin through repetition. Lots of lifting and landing, repetition. Eventually climb up onto your leg with both hands. If your back knee is uncomfortable, come forwards again and readjust it. Some people prefer to do this with the toes tucked, others with it pointing back. The advice is, even if there's discomfort on the back knee, if you then focus on the stretch of the inner groin up and over the pubis, and then give to that stretch, which is the magic part of yoga, it's where yoga all comes together, then that upwards release takes pressure off the knee exponentially, and especially if you follow through with the arms. So go ahead and raise your arms. Anjaneyasana. I was talking to my new best friend, Kadeen, and I've made a new best friend this week, our next door neighbor, and he comes from Jaipur, and his family follow Hanuman, and Anjaneya, of course, is one of the names of Hanuman. So we had a long talk about Hanuman while I mended his garden fence / our garden fence. Okay, come forward, take a breath or two, lift the back knee, step back to Adho Mukha Svanasana, take a breath or 5, heels back, groins up, inner groins up, back of the thighs towards the front of the thighs, front of the thighs up, breathing through the nose, armpits open, inner and outer and under. Jaw soft. I love you. Bring your shoulders forwards, above your wrists. Hover, shoulder blades, buttocks, heels. I love you. Chaturanga Dandasana. Or your version. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Good job. Everyone loves Chaturanga. When it finishes, that's the full sentence. The toes could be tucked under or pointing back. Tummy's toned. You want to feel the weight of the vertebrae. You want to lift up anteriorly along the front face of the vertebrae. Along the front face of the vertebrae. Roll on the toes back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. Breathe calmly. Open the inner armpits, open the outer armpits, etc. And then lower the knees down to hands and knees, super slow. In fact, tease yourself just above the floor. Right? If you've got sort of cheap nylon trousers, you might feel the static touching the floor before you do. If you're lucky enough to have slightly hairy knees like me, we can feel the hair on the knees touch the floor before you do. Okay, and then you land, take a deep breath. Sorry, I didn't mean to rub it in. Some people are feeling, oh, I don't have hairy knees, and lucky you do. But you have other things if you don't have hairy knees. Deep breaths, jaw soft, soft brain. let go into the breath. Second leg into Anjaneyasana, so that comes forwards. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. And then coming forwards and lifting up the back knee. And, excuse me, a lila play. Forwards, backwards, up, down. Looking to land the knee behind the pelvis, but also looking to land it in a way that stretches already the lower end of the iliacus and the psoas, iliac psoas. In other words, the top of the inner thigh, but also places the whole groin. We want to sort of place the groin when we place the knee. Climb up onto your leg if you're ready, or when you're ready. If there's discomfort in the back knee, remember you can readjust its position, but also remember that if you focus on an upwards release, which is the stretch plus giving to the stretch. What makes it magic is the giving, and raise the arms to follow that upward release through. So the stretch plus the upward release, the agreement, which is basically just giving back to the goddess. The agreement is just giving back to the goddess. Okay, come forwards calmly when you're ready. Back to hands and knees, where we can wag the tail. Keep loose. Take one knee forwards directly behind its own wrist, and then move the foot diagonally across the body as you stretch back your other leg slowly. This is one of the many poses that use the word kapotasana. Kapota in Sanskrit means pigeon and also grey. If you want to say the color grey, you say pigeon in Sanskrit because they're grey. So you can be up or down. Some people like to, or halfway. You can be sort of grand old Duke of York about the whole situation. But what we want is flow, because flow defines space. When we're talking about the goddess, isn't it interesting, for example, that Kali, who is both revered in Buddhist circles and Shaiva, Kali is very commonly portrayed as space, not as a sort of iconography, but just as space. She's known, for example, Kali, for her enormous mouth. And that's symbolic, because she can put anything, she can just consume anything, because she's space. Right? So in the Devi Mahatma, we find her just kind of eating loads and loads of demons, just shoving them in her mouth like they're nothing, crunching them up. Yummy demon breakfast, demon lunch, demon dinner. And that's because, she represents space. In space, everything dissolves. Look at the Earth from the moon. People who've been to the moon say that it puts everything in perspective. Look at the Earth from the surface of Mars, as the Mars rovers and others have done. It's just a blue dot. Look at the Earth from the edge of the heliosphere, as Carl Sagan asked one of the Voyager probes to do, and it becomes a single pixel. Look at the Earth from beyond the heliosphere, it's gone. Space has dissolved
everything. Yes, stay in touch with space, and nothing will trouble you. If you're down, come up. If you're up, come down. Take your back knee forwards by tucking your back toes under. Come to hands and knees in your own time. Take a breath. Wag your tail. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Other knee forwards. Same thing, of course, diagonally across the body. Move the foot diagonally across the body and stretch back your other leg in your own time. I would say that most people will feel relief if they come down to their elbows, but some people find benefit in lifting up. Of course, the kapota poses, which there's the ekapada kapota poses, the one leg kapota poses, and then there's the regular kapotasana. All of these poses in particular expression have the open chest, the puffed up chest of a pigeon as their sort of defining mark. Breathing easy, jaw soft, eyes soft. If you're up, come down. If you're down, come up. Bring your back knee forwards, back to hands and knees. Take a moment to move the pelvis this way and that. And our last Adho Mukha Svanasana, perhaps, unless you're staying for the next class, which is only in real life, sorry, Zoomers, but we're going to have our hands like this, right? Like this, like a beautiful, beautiful sunrise. And our feet quite generously placed. So you come up into Adho Mukha Svanasana, your hands like a beautiful sunrise or sunset. And then extending energy through the central channel. So extending through the middle, the madhya. I think it's good to have the feet quite wide for this. Repetition, abhyasa vairagya bhyamta nirodha. Patanjali says, abhyasa vairagya bhyamta nirodha. Both together, abhyam, abhyasa, repetition, and vairagya, spaciousness, flowingness, not getting caught up, being in touch with space. Those two together, tam nirodha, stop the constant proliferation of random happenings which are beyond control, that tumble us around like we're something in a washing machine. Okay, release, slowly turn your hands out as you come forwards. Take a breath or two. We're going to sit on a block for Siddhasana. The Pradipika tells us it's the best of all poses. But we might not feel comfortable in Siddhasana, so you're fine to sit in a different position. The heels are in line with the midline of the body and with each other. A brick block works well, but some people prefer to sit on foam blocks with the short end facing forwards. You can use a blanket under your shins as well. Sit up tall with the chest lifted. So I'll just repeat that the Pradipika, the Hatha Pradipika, says this is the best of all poses. If you know this pose, why bother with the others in a way? It's like, that's the Pradipika's angle on it. And of course, it's called Siddhasana, the adept's seat. So a siddha is someone who is an adept. A great yogi will sit in Siddhasana. Breathe through your nose, drop the shoulders. And imagine the breath is reaching down from the Dwadash Anta, the space of 12. Dwadash is 12, Anta is the end of. The end of 12 what? Fingers. There's 4, 8, 12. That's the Dwadashanta, the end of 12 in brackets, square brackets, fingers. Imagine the breath coming from there to the bottom of the heart, so correlating with the xiphoid cartilage, bottom of the breastbone, and then back up. As you breathe in, it comes down. As you breathe out, it goes up. Just a few rounds. This is a preparatory for something else we're going to do, so concentrate on it. Now, as this process continues, in a minute, we'll keep this going, but in a minute, we'll imagine it not just reaching the bottom of the breastbone, but reaching the pelvic floor. And as it reaches as the incoming breath reaches the pelvic floor, we'll chant back up through the central channel, back up to the Dwadashanta, Om. Okay? So one deep breath down to the pelvic floor. Om. Up to the Dwadashanta above the head. And then deep breaths. Inner space, outer space, connected. Shiva, Shakti, one. The Vajra and the bell as one. Our final melting stage, where inside and outside completely melt, where there's a practice of melting as described by the Dattatreya Yoga Shastra from the 13th century, is Shavasana, it is corpse pose. So let's lay ourselves down for that final couple of minutes of practice. And this very important pose, it's only one of 4 poses taught in that very important text, the Dattatreya Yoga Shastra, which is probably the 4th book written on Hatha Yoga. Make sure you're warm. So snug as a bug in a rug, so probably put yourself in a rug. The Yoga, Dattatreya Yoga Shastra, the Yoga teachings of Dattatreya says find a place you can be on your own. It says find a lonely place. Lonely doesn't mean a place where you're like, oh, I feel so lonely. It's not that kind of. It's like find a lonely place, a place where you can be on your own. And lay on your back as if you were dead. With limbs loose. Surrender is the theme of yoga, whether it's surrendering to the goddess as a dancing representation of the interdependent field, whether it's surrender to the sun, as in the Saurya traditions, Or even as in the Pink Floyd song, set your controls for the heart of the sun, there's intimated melting and surrender, which brings about return to the source, Mula Prakriti. The return to the source means that the mind, the return of the mind, of an experience of the goddess as her source constituents, the three guna, means as we experience her as her source constituents, we don't get confused anymore. We don't get entangled anymore. And Purusha and Prakriti become discerned, clear. There is Prakriti, this beautiful, endless dance of everything. And there is the Purusha, the supreme perspective. Space without boundaries, limitlessness, agelessness, timelessness, genderlessness, unidentified. So as not to be tardy, we'll enjoy feeling into the body, moving the toes, moving the fingers, and stretching out in various ways, rubbing the eyes. And finally bending the legs, scooting the buttocks, taking a deep breath that's deliberate in and out, rolling onto your side if you're here in the Mattika, roll onto your side facing away from the shrine side of the room. Draw your knees up. At home you can roll to either side. Draw your knees up. Roll back towards the Mattika, or rather towards the shrine side of the Mattika. As comfortably as you can, bringing yourself round gently with eye rubbing, hair movement, shoulder rubbing, whatever brings you round. When you're ready, coming up from the side, using your arms to assist your ascent. Excuse me. May the merit gained in our acting in this way go to alleviate the suffering of absolutely every single being in existence. Om.